the Lido. In Paris, he played with several orchestras, but the most important development was that he met the in-fashion singer Jean Sablon, with whom he recorded various discs. In this number, some of his interventions as a soloist can be heard. He also met the violin player and orchestra conductor Michel Barlop. The jazz music coming from America was invading Europe. Orchestras that wanted to be at the forefront had to incorporate jazz into their repertoire, something which was not easy. Michel Barlop was able to get together an orchestra imitating the big bands of the USA. Django was part of it. In this interpretation, he intervenes as a soloist. It is in this orchestra that he was to meet the violinist Stéphane Grappelli, without doubt the most important meeting of his entire artistic career. In precarious conditions, with private recording equipment barely sufficient for the occasion, Django, his brother Joseph on rhythm guitar, and a bass player called Juan Fernandez recorded 3 very well-known jazz numbers of the epoch. Finally, this was the opportunity he had been waiting for since he recovered from the accident. Now he could devote all his ideas without anything holding him back, inventing and improvising tirelessly. Everything that came to his head. It was an explosion of creativity. Despite the low quality of the recording, Django improvised an extraordinary swing and hot in which you can appreciate the great mastery he had of the guitar in those days. Maybe they are run-of-the-mill interpretations, a little amateurish, but the sincerity with which they get across the music would not be repeated in all of Django's career. Afterwards, everything happened almost at the same time. The Hot Club of France had just been founded, with Hugues Panassier as president. He was a great expert in music and a dear friend of Charles Delaunay, a producer of musicals. The latter, a big fan of Django, organized a group which included Stéphane Grappelli on the violin, Django as the soloist guitarist, and two other guitarists to add rhythm, Joseph Reinhardt and Roger Chaput, the contrabassist Louis Bola, whom we have already spoken about. They recorded two numbers, I Saw Stars and Confessing. The second of these had already been played by Django with two other musicians back in August. Delaunay released onto the market the discs under the name of Delaunay's Jazz. However, they proved to be so successful that it was decided that the five would be an official part of the Hot Club of France. Now the group would be known as the Hot Club. In the band, all five of the musicians were on stringed instruments. Right from the beginning, the musical understanding between Django and Grappelli was almost perfect. They fed off each other musically and the solos harmonized together, although it was nearly always Django who led the way. In December of the same year, they recorded some new numbers. Django continued with this band, sometimes changing the rhythm members. Thanks to his participation, it went on to become part of jazz history. Django did not stop recording and playing with other musicians and orchestras. However, we are going to focus on his overwhelming creativity and his total liberty of expression, and this means concentrating on the Quintet Hot Club of France. Grappelli was very different to Django, both in the type of person he was and in the way he behaved. Elegant, educated, reliable, and disciplined, Grappelli had studied piano and violin, his mastery of which was impressive at a conservatory. However, he was not a natural-born creator like Django. As a jazz musician, he did not go beyond his masters, above all, Eddie South, who we will deal with later. He copied their style and even their way of transmitting the music. However, his interventions were superlative. Eddie South was the most important black violinist of his times. Grappelli was the perfect foil for Django, who gave him liberty to play but helped him out by filling in the empty spaces with inspired jazz performances. We must not forget that jazz is a collective music. If there is an inspired musician backed up by mediocre ones, it is unlikely that the results are going to be anything good. When all the musicians understand each other and are up to the standard that jazz is worthy of, the result is sublime. While Grappelli is doing his solo, almost always it is possible to still hear Django. His creativity is constant. He never stopped.